G'day, freedom lovers. How are we today? Here's a Saturday special. Big sips to all you wonderful people out there. And also a big shout out for Michael, who I believe is still in surgery at the moment. So we're still hoping that he's coming through good and that all is well. I'm pretty confident we're going to be fine. So he will be fine. We all have a bit of faith here, so I think we should be good. So sips to that. We should hopefully see him alive and well very shortly. So today's very impromptu, make it up as we go along. Conversation started with an email. So I got an email from Robin earlier today after having seen last night's podcast, and she had just recently been to Norfolk Island and listened to what Darren had to say and confirmed that she felt the same. She'd gone over there basically telling us how she'd gone for a holiday and wasn't really going out there looking for anything in particular, just wanted to get away from it all and, see something different, and ends up finding all the things that we were talking about. And she shot me a bit of an email about what was going on, and I had a bit of a yarn with Darren, went backwards and forwards, and some interesting things have come of that, but we'll have more on that as things develop a little bit further. So big thanks to Robin for reaching out. And during that conversation, she said, "Hey, I've been talking to this guy, Steve. He's really cool. You should get him on the show." I'm like, "Oh, all right. Well, I'm not doing anything later. Hey, chuck my number to him and let's see what happens." And well, here we are, and here's Steve. G'day, Steve. How are you, mate?
Hey, yeah, good, mate. How are you?
Very good, man. Love the t-shirt, dude.
Big cheers. Yeah, the t-shirt's good. And here's to Michael and Kelly. We're thinking about you guys.
For sure.
Love goes to those beautiful people. And I'm just starting the show a bit incognito because just before we went on air, we had a chat about satanic cults in New South Wales towns. And here's my my article from the maybe you can read that, from the 1991 Canberra Times.
Hang on. Let's blow you up a little bit here. Solid layout. So, satanic cults in New South Wales towns. There we go.
I'll add the link later. I'm sorry. If I was a bit more organised, I would have got the link. But
That's all
basically,
right.
it's saying that Satanists are running Port Macquarie, where we are today, and other New South Wales towns, and they're in the police, the judiciary, and of course the medical fraternity. And as I was sitting here, I realised that I'm surrounded by churches. There's a Catholic church behind me there. There's an Anglican church right next door. They actually do a great job, the Anglican church, of handing out at least food and free lunches and stuff. So they're at least trying to do some good. I can just, to the left of me, I can see the Port Macquarie Courthouse, or Fraud House, as I like to because it's just organised crime happening down there. And of course, a little bit further down the street is the Port Macquarie Police, the sovereign citizens who don't believe that any laws apply to them, and they can just go around kidnapping and assaulting. And so that's why I'm a little bit incognito. Maybe, if I feel a bit safer, I'm in my safe space. If I feel a bit safer during the interview, I might go back to my normal red glasses. So.
No worries. Let's hope that safe space emerges, mate.
Yes.
So we've had like such a brief conversation so far, a quick little telephone call and a quick yarn beforehand here, and so this is a bit of a get to know you sort of a podcast. But as I understand it, you've had a few run-ins with the satanic cults, and they've been giving you a bit of curry, mate. Would you like to shed some light on that, or should we start with a video there? How do you want to go, mate?
Oh yeah, I could just say that I've been in court many, many times after these assaults and kidnappings that the satanic cults think they can inflict on Australian civilians. And what I've noticed is that if you're a career criminal who goes around bashing people, etc., they're kinder to you in the court system than if you're someone like me, who's just trying to inform the public about the harms their government's trying to enact on them. Someone who says no to the government that cannot be abided by. That is, you cannot say no to the government. You can go around bashing people and committing crimes, but if you say no to the government, that's the worst thing you can ever do. And I've been treated worse, I think, because of that than any other reason. And it's because I literally tell people, your government is currently trying to murder you. You must stop complying with them. You must stop paying your taxes. You must stop using your driver's license. You must exercise the government from your life. And if they start playing a better game with us, if they start doing the right thing, maybe you'll think about joining them again. But for now, I do not have a relationship with the government. Yep. And because I don't have a driver's license, etc. But I mean, have a look around. Lots of obese people around. You could all do with a bit more walking in your life, right? So you can cut up your driver's license, and you can certainly stop paying your taxes, which is being used to fund drone wars in Ukraine currently. Yeah, you can probably stop paying your tax. It's certainly not helping people who are living in tents, the taxes.
It's a bit of a challenge, though, trying to stop paying taxes, because they're going to tax on everything. Like, sometimes I wonder how many times I'm paying taxes just breathing. I mean, you go down and buy a bowl of rum, half of that's fucking taxed. And heaven forbid you decided to take up smoking, Struth, 95% of that's fucking taxed. You go do your job in your pay G scenario, you don't get an option. They're taking that shit before you get it, because we're not going to take any risk of you insubordinate citizens out there saying, why should I pay my taxes? Come get it. You imagine the whole country just said, well, I'm not paying my income tax. You come get it. And crash the system.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if we keep feeding them money, they're going to keep buying drones to go deploy in Ukraine. Yeah. They're going to keep paying police to wander the streets and bash you. That's what's going to happen if you keep supplying this demon with money. So if you cut off the supply, they'll start behaving better. But at the moment, they could not give a fuck about us. Yeah, we're just a cash cow to them.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's very difficult if you've got a job. Your employer will be taking that tax out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But certainly don't pay any fines you get, any council rates, anything like that. It's all bullshit. And as Michael would tell you, he doesn't agree with me to not vote, because that's one of my other platforms. Don't vote for these fuckers.
Don't encourage the bastards, you don't reckon?
Yeah. Well, he wants to vote for the Libertarians, and I can see where he's coming from there. But he would say, if he was here right now, he would say people need to stand up for themselves. Yeah. And the main thing we need to stand up against is this tyrannical fraud of a government which is just sucking us dry and keeping us under control. And I think you were saying something when we had a chat earlier about it's all about control.
Yes. That's definitely the thing. They certainly want to control every element of your life. They want to control its mind, body, and soul, and I think the last 5 years has certainly demonstrated that, in the manner in which they did things, to even stranglehold, the churches that are in your background there and tell them, that people can't come to these places to worship, in times, of crisis, once they've scared the absolute shit out of everybody with this China virus scenario. That just told you, well, we're trying to control your spirituality as well as your bodies and your minds. It's these are very dark times indeed, and they're not going to get any better by people not doing anything, that's for sure. As far as the voting thing goes, hey, look, each their own. And as we were saying earlier, that there people being coerced into voting, it certainly hasn't worked out well. I mean, it really just, you have to wonder how many people in Australia would actually turn up to vote if all of a sudden they didn't have to. They weren't being coerced. I reckon you'd find you'd be lucky to get maybe 10-15% of the population would turn up to vote, I reckon, because Australians really don't want to deal with politics. And I think that's a huge message.
Or it might turn completely the other way. If we're not being coerced via fines and ultimate threat of violence if you don't pay your fine into voting, maybe people might be more interested in the actual political landscape. Whereas in the moment, it's just in the paradigm of more government punishment if I don't do what I'm told. And I mean, we saw it happen in the latest WA election, which was obviously fraudulent. People were at polling booths and they'd run out of polling slips and people were happy just to have their names checked off so they didn't get fined. They weren't that worried about whether they cast their vote as long as their name was checked off. I mean, this is a mentality that we are still stuck in high school, and we really need to move on above from that. We're not slaves to the government. We should be in control of the government, and for some reason it's flipped, and most people seem to be going along with it. And I get it, because the last few years we've been victims of war crimes, really, and we're depressed and we're broke and we're about to be living in our cars. And so it's very easy for us to get pushed around by this tyrannical government. Really easy.
And here we are at the time of Easter, people are supposed to sort of, ritually fast, but I can't help but feel that we're all fasting anyway because, wow, we've got a government to pay for. We can't afford to eat. So, there's a lot of people out there can't afford homes and whatnot. So it's the sacrifice is here every day for people, and that's got to end. And we had a bit of a discussion about it last night, what are the solutions? One of them was, well, we've got to get more minor parties in there. And unfortunately, we're not going to get that if good people who can actually figure out what's going on say, oh, I don't want to vote. I was like, oh, that's a good person voting. That's not, helping out those minor parties, the Great Australian parties, the Libertarian parties, the Heart Party is, Jared Rennick's new People First Party. It's looking pretty interesting, though it'd be wonderful if we got a whole bunch of them in there and Liberal and Labor were forced to make some sort of coalition just to survive, that I'd love to see that, and that's a future I sincerely hope for. Oh, there's so much.
I hope for that as well.
A hell of a lot of pushback, from all over the internet. You see so many people going, we've had enough of the majors. We've had enough of the majors. You got to wonder how much fraud is going on, considering, we looked at the stats and I think, it's nearly 40% of the population didn't vote Liberal and Labor in the last election. So I'm hoping to see the 50 to 60% this time around, start going, hang on, we've had enough of this Liberal and Labor shit. And then it's a mind virus in itself. You think about it, Liberal, Labor, all our fucking lives. It's just backwards and forwards. And the only thing that changes is the fucking date. And there's less money in my pocket now than there was bloody the last time. And it just keeps getting worse. Surely other people can see that. Surely it's not just, you, me, and the wonderful audience here. Let's hope for the best. I'm guessing, hopefully at the moment, my glass is over half full, and I hope the things are going to stay that way. But, Sips.
Well, I think you mentioned the magic word there, which was fraud. There's a couple of sentences back. Have a look around the world where people aren't and are coerced into voting, And do you think any of the governments around the world who have been voted in, supposedly Democrats, democracies, are any of them doing right by their citizens? No, they're not. So, unfortunately, even if all the minor parties got in, there'd still be some way with this current system still in place, which is complete fraud, to fuck us over, unfortunately. So we've just got to reject the government. And as I was saying on a recent podcast with Michael, we have got to start growing our own vegetables and keeping our own chickens and telling the government to go fuck themselves. Yeah. And until we get to that point, until we grow up and put our big boy and big girl pants on, we are going to be screwed over by these people who believe they are there to rule us. Yeah. And they're not even in control, our government. I mean, anyone looking at the last few years can see that the WEF, the WHO, NATO, all these other organisations are actually the ones in control of our government. Yeah. And again, it's fraud because the Australian government does not exist. If you're voting for the Australian government, you are complicit in fraud. There is the Commonwealth of Australia. If you believe in those things, that is what is in place. And the Australian government has got nothing to do with the Commonwealth of Australia, with their Queen of Australia and all the other bullshit that they've written in. Yeah. So if you are going and voting in the next couple of weeks, you are complicit in fraud and you're going to deserve what you get. Okay. If you get out on the street and tell other people don't vote for these maniacs until they start doing the right thing, we might be getting somewhere. But unfortunately, everyone thinks that, if I don't pay my council rates, they're going to come and take my house. That's complete bullshit. Yeah.
But they do that. Actually,
they do that for people who...
A bit later who's lost his house because, he was an Indigenous fella. And this is a really sad story. He lost his house, and they used native title to remove him from his house. He's an Indigenous elder.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I know other people who have not paid rates for years. You can say, well, show me the contract that I've got with the council, which says that I have to pay you fees, council. In fact, who the fuck are you, council, to be demanding anything of me? You're a corporation. The Australian government is also a corporation.
That's what he did, and he has no house, unfortunately.
Well, here you go. So tyranny.
An Indigenous man, not only, from a certain point of view, lost the country, but now lost his house that he worked hard for in the system, to the system. It's, there is that shocking reality to these things. And I mean, let's assume, for instance, say 90% of the population just said, fuck no, we're not voting. And I mean, you look at the last referendum there, 10% of the population didn't vote. And always, from one point of view, you can say, well, that's the most significant portion of the population saying, fuck you, we're not playing this game that we've ever seen, Sure. So that's a very big tell about how people are feeling. And obviously a lot of people, much like yourself, have, there's a lot of people feeling the same way, But what would happen if 90%? Sorry?
Do you believe those stats? They're coming from the government. They're coming from the Bureau of Statistics. I wouldn't believe them as far as I can throw them.
I'd give it there's a variable amount of truth in it, in the sense that, I mean, well, if they wanted to give propaganda, wouldn't they just say, no, everybody voted and it's all good? But to see there is a steady decline in people voting and a steady rise in people voting against the major parties, and they're putting that out, I don't see how that serves their interest.
Well, all I know is that all the figures that came out over the last few years about COVID uptake were also from the government, and they were complete bullshit.
I'd be.
We had the Premier stand up in WA. We had the Premier stand up in WA and say the first dose was like 98% people in WA were first dosed. Absolute bullshit. Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe anything the government's telling you now.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's a perfect example of all that. That certainly works for them. You know, that works in their favor. There. Oh, look, everybody else is complaining. It's just you last 2%. And let's assume,
That's right.
well, maybe if it was like 50% of the population, maybe that worked on a lot of people. Go, oh, I don't want to be the only one. You know, and that's
Correct.
the purpose of the lockdown. Again, you're isolated, so you don't know. You know, again, you know, we wouldn't have passed the pub test if everyone was down at the pub. You know, because everybody would have got together and gone, yeah, this does smell pretty dodgy. I ain't touching that shit. You know, that's why they had to get everybody separate. So you can see in that particular instance, it certainly serves their purposes. But in the case of the voting thing, that doesn't serve their purposes. So perhaps there isn't a fair amount of truth in it. Maybe not 100% accurate.
Yeah, sure. And I'm being devil's advocate a little bit there, but obviously they'd have to say there's some percentage of people that didn't vote. So 10% is as good a figure as anything else. But that means that 90% still voted, so it's still a cool democracy, you know? If it's what can I say? You're screwed either way, whether you vote or not. In this country right now, if you keep complying with the government and doing what you're told and signing documents when they say so, et cetera, then we're going to continue to be screwed over. This whole system has to be wiped out and we have to start again, right? And the fact that there is no Australian government, it's a fraud, should make it a little bit easier in everyone's mind to say, okay, well, we're just going to come together locally, grow our vegetables and our chickens, and we're going to come up with our own rules because you people have fucked it, right? And at every step, you've proven to us that you're only interested in control. You're not interested in solving problems. You're not interested in helping people. It's just fraud.
I think it's a bit of give and take. I think, you know, definitely when it comes to Liberal and Labor, you know, definitely we're talking about two cheeks of the same ass, as Robin's so fond of saying. And hello, Robin, by the way, I did see you say that there. But yeah, and the Greens, well, let's face it, that's kind of like insanity. You know, being voted in. It's literal insanity, you know, and you can see there's definitely a variance in the way things work. You know, when it comes to the Liberal Party, you can at least have a conversation with those kinds of people. When it comes to the Labor Party, they're leaning so towards that greeny leftist scenario, you can't have a conversation with them. You can't work with them. You can only work for them. And that's that full-blown socialism what we're seeing. Although, you know, that said, Liberal Party certainly seems to have that same attitude as well, as we've seen with Jared Rennick, and it seems like all anybody that was good in the Liberal Party has jumped ship. You know, we've lost, you know, George Christensen, who was the elected representative in my area up here. And I was like, oh, Struth, at least in my area, we've got one guy that's saying the right thing during this COVID madness. You know, it was kind of comforting to know that, well, our little pocket reality was okay in a sense. You know, I had a voice that was actually saying what I wanted somebody to say. That I felt represented for the first time fucking in my entire life. It was amazing to see. You know, I think the only time I've ever voted for somebody and gone, yes, they got in, was our mayor, and they removed him. You know, so and they used my podcast to get him out, which was fucking absolutely mind blowing. I don't know if I'm proud of that or fucking, you know, or not. It's something different. I'm still processing that one. Hence this little thing on the board here where the mainstream media went so hammer and tong after the mayor. They even invented their own conspiracy theories that he'd come onto this podcast with a fake voice, but it was actually an Indigenous fella, and I took great joy in showing them just how fucking stupid they were. It was a great bit of fun, but that's another conversation. But you know, like for every time I vote, I'm always voting for the little guy. Ever since I was a kid, you know, before I could even vote, you know, you hear the oldies telling us, oh, it's only Liberal and Labor, anything else is a wasted vote. I'm like, well, that's because you don't vote for the other guy. You tell me it's a democracy, but then you're telling me that my vote's is a waste of time because Liberal or Labor are going to win. Well, in my lifetime, I'm starting to see that Liberal and Labor are shit in their pants, hence they've gone and changed laws. So to me, it suggests that a change in attitude is actually a threat to them. They wouldn't be worried. They wouldn't be doing what they're doing if it wasn't. So,
yeah. Well,
I can't help but feel that
everyone in Australia... Everyone in Australia has been voting their whole lives, whether it be for Liberal, Labor or the little guy. And here we are with Australian families poisoned and living in tents.
Yeah.
So what's the definition of insanity again?
Oh, continuously doing the same thing over and over again. But I reserve that for people who are voting Liberal, Labor, and Greens.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, it doesn't matter who you vote for, the government always gets in. I think isn't that the meme?
Well, yeah, true. Maybe I'm being ridiculous here and thinking that there may be a light at the end of this tunnel, and it looks like a minor party, but. And that said, I supported one of the councillors here who's still in, and boy, did he turn his back on everyone and everything because he didn't want to end up like the mayor who got removed. So, you can see that was a good person before he got in. And as soon as he got in, he's like, no, I want to keep my job. I like the cushy benefits and the fact that I have to do fuck all. All I have to do is nod and go along with everything, and I get lots of money. And it's like, wow, you turned into an asshole real fucking quick, didn't you, Christian Price?
Also, you don't know all the money that he's getting. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah, fuck knows what kind of kickbacks.
And I'm loving your optimism, Batty. Okay. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more realistic. I'm sorry to use that term as an insult.
It's all right. I get it.
But do you really think, I mean, what was the figures for Albo's vote in last time? Do you really think that 40% of the population voted for that prick? I don't think so.
Yeah, there's a lot of dumbasses in the world, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's more fraud involved there, and there'll be more in this election.
Probably a bit of column A and B, a lot of dumbasses and a lot of fraud, And if that WA election, you look at it and go, no way in hell. Well, I mean, Labor were cascadingly losing everywhere around the state and then all around the country. And all of a sudden, WA just decided, oh, fuck it. We all love Labor. You've got to be shitting me.
We all love the guy that told us to go and get our children vaccinated. Over and over again, and threatened us with our work if we didn't go and get our children vaccinated. Absolute bullshit, and it's complete fraud. And we need to wake up and start being adults in this country. We're not in the schoolyard anymore, and we need to tell the government to go fuck themselves in no uncertain terms. And we need to be prepared to go to prison. People don't like me saying this, okay? We need to be prepared. Let's put it in high school terms that everyone will understand. We need to be prepared to go to detention after school. Okay? Yep. Detention. Because because that's what they always threaten you by. If you don't do this, then they'll do that. If you don't do this, then they'll eventually.
Sorry. You're breaking up there, buddy.
You with arrest. Everybody in this country needs to get arrested so you can get over it.
Yeah.
It's probably the wonderful internet.
Yeah, all good, man. I mean, me being me, I'm prepared. I know I'm certainly
it
rocking
cuts
the
out
boat,
on me. The Freemasons are cutting out on me as the
Yeah, the courts. There we go. He got his final words in before it actually happened. Perhaps the Freemasons, was it ASIO? A bum signal from the courthouse down the road there. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. This is the benefits of live television. These things happen. So we'll say good day to police drone who's hovering around, and good old hidden network still there too. No ASIO today though. Maybe their hidden network. Who knows? We're back and pixelated.
Yeah.
So Martin's got one.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you. There you are.
So, this is now talk about fraud. We spent $100 billion on the national broadband network, and I can't get a fucking signal, right?
Yep.
If you go to third world countries overseas, you get 100 megabytes per second minimum.
Yeah. Well, you got to wonder who
where did all that money go? Yeah, well, it's us. That's who it is. Yeah.
Yep. Well, everything's turned upside down. We've got families living on the streets.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everything's poisoned. The food's poisoned. The water's poisoned. Families living on the streets.
A
If we don't
socialist
go and get
government
injected,
telling us it's a democracy.
yep. If we're not on the streets, the government's taking over with our children and getting them to take puberty blockers and start chopping bits off their body. It is never ending with these pricks. And I mean, I have a friend here in Port Macquarie who has a child at school. The school got in New South Wales Health for an injection clinic a few weeks ago. And we turned up just to simply ask questions and get the parents to start asking questions about how safe are these injections, not just mRNA injections, the whole suite of these vaccines. And we were treated like criminals again, like we're the enemy. We're a couple of fathers standing out front of a school worried about the welfare of the children inside, and we are being treated like we are the enemy.
Yeah. It's a shocking state of affairs.
Yeah.
And, you know, unfortunately, that fear is a powerful motivator for a lot of people. You know, you can't help but think, you know, we're still scared little apes, you know, staring at that first flame burning, you know, going, "Ooh, fire, bad," you know. It's things haven't progressed for a lot of humanity, you know. And here we are, all evolved and, you know, whatnot. I was at the playground the other day pushing my daughter on the swing, and another kid just walks right blindly in front of her, and I couldn't catch her in time, you know, and just brushed past her hair, you know. And, you know, then the mother was like, "Oh, don't worry, you're right. It's nothing you could do." I'm like, "Oh, I tried. I just couldn't reach fast enough." You know, she was just like, "Oh, wow, you know, I don't want it to happen, but you kind of you've got to let them get kicked in the head once in a while or they ain't going to learn." I'm like, yeah. Got to wonder how the human race made it this far, really, with such blind awareness going on. And I think a lot of people just never got kicked in the head as a kid walking in front of the swing, perhaps. You know, they're still blindly walking through society thinking everything's fine when it's clearly not.
Yeah. And also still relying on the government to solve their problems. And the government doesn't solve problems, it creates them. Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know what to tell people other than insult everyone and tell them to wake the fuck up. I really don't know anymore. I mean, I was outside of a I was arrested 2 months ago here in Port Macquarie because I was simply filming on the street with some signs out front of a medical centre here in Port Macquarie. And after I was violently arrested, where they injured me and broke my camera equipment, I was taken to the Port Macquarie police station where they tried to get me to sign bail so they can release me. And I've got another video on my channel about not signing bail because it's a contract with the police that you don't want to sign.
Yeah.
So then they've taken me to the... Oh, yeah. Well, they've taken me to the courthouse where, because I wouldn't sign bail... You're right. The magistrate has decided to send me for a mental health evaluation. And I was very lucky to get out of that situation, not being sectioned in some mental institution and jabbed to the hilt with whatever the fuck. So
how did you get out of that particular situation? So, you know, with the guys in white coats have turned up, dragged you off in a little van and...
No, the police take you there. They take you to the hospital, the police, in handcuffs, because filming on the street, you're obviously a violent individual.
Definitely. Don't mind the rapists and the murderers and the, you know, the gang affiliated people. You know, they're okay. You know, and we're seeing that over America with the what was the name of that fucking gang that they're all trying to fucking defend? Trying to think of the name of it. MS-13 gang members. You know that, you know, all the leftists are getting out there and supporting, much like good old George Floyd and all that. You know, great upstanding members of the community. But yeah, you with a camera, very dangerous.
Very, very dangerous. Particularly telling people about mRNA and showing pictures of the white clots, which no one's speaking about yet, which they're pulling out of people's bodies. These, you know, meter-long white clots that are like a casting of your vein.
Calamari.
And so I was very lucky that I came across a young psychologist who was fresh in the country from Iran. So he wasn't quite yet indoctrinated or maybe gotten to by the establishment and paid pay dollars. So he gave me a clean bill of health and noted that I was not delusional. I just had very strong political beliefs. So he had to get himself injected to come into the country, by the way. Still.
That's disgraceful.
And everybody knows in this country that the injections were bad for you, these COVID-19 injections.
So amazingly, some people still defend them and are queuing up willingly to get that shit.
Yes, they are, and that's fine for them. I've never said that you shouldn't be able to get medication if you want it. The problem with me was that I took offence to them mandating it, and
I agree,
and coercing my entire family into poisoning themselves with this shit, right? And now I worry about them day and night.
Family to turn on you for having the common sense to say, I don't want to be a guinea pig.
That's correct, yeah. And there's still, you can walk into any one of these doctors' surgeries now, and they're still injecting people with it today, even after all the evidence, even after the post-marketing study in 2021 by Pfizer themselves, which showed children and adults had been killed in the trials in 2021, right? Now, they all knew that in 2022, all these governments all around the country that mandated it in 2022, they all had seen the Pfizer post-marketing data about the deaths and injuries from the trials, and they still went ahead with it. And it's, as I say, it's a control thing, because here in New South Wales, they actually did start refunding last year the fines from people not doing the right thing during COVID. Whereas in WA, for example...
Did they just I know they dropped a lot of fines, but I've never heard of being refunded. That sounds very
I could be wrong. I could be wrong. So maybe they, took the red X off your name or some bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas in WA, which is like the head of the Freemason snake here in this country, because it's out of sight, out of mind. It's where all the mining happening. Yep. That's the head of the Freemason satanic occult over there in WA. They are still prosecuting people for not having a vaccine passport when cops with guns drawn raided pubs, right, to see if everyone had their fucking vaccine certificate. I mean, this is Nazi sort of stuff here. And in fact, giving the Nazis a bad name, right? This is fucking, New World Order, satanic occultist bullshit. And that's who's running the country. And so if you go ahead and you go and vote in the next couple of weeks, you'll be voting for these satanic occultists. So good luck with that.
Well, I like to think I'm trying to vote for the good guys, if there is such a thing, I do know that there are a few out there, and, you take someone like, say, Rod Colleton, for example. We know he was one of the good guys because they removed him. So they are out there. Much like the mayor that we voted in here. If I had any doubts about whether he's a good person or not, it went out the window when they removed him.
Well, look at Gerard Rennick. Is he gonna get up? Because he's one of the good guys. So they made the Liberal Party made sure he was.
So people are going to vote for him.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but
it's the only way he'll get up.
Sure. And
that's
what difference will it make to have another.
I agree with what you're saying.
Just guillotine everything.
I don't want to support them, and don't vote. It only encourages the bastards, But at the same time, as we discussed sort of last night, we kind of, I felt we kind of come to a conclusion that it's a multifaceted thing, like there's layers and layers of deception and Satan worship and filth and disgustingness in our society, and there is, and I see a lot of people ask the question, what's the one big answer, and it just reminds me of that moment in fucking Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's 42. That's the ultimate answer.
Yes.
42, what does that mean? Well, what's the fucking question? That's the thing. You haven't figured out what the right question is, you're not going to get the right answer. So, in my view, we need multiple different approaches. One is to start getting good people voted in. We need also good people to stand their ground and fight back in the system, and have laws shown to be, no, this is unlawful. You can't go around just sticking anything you like in people, I mean, hey, look, I've got a penis. I want to go around. I want to put it in everyone. I don't think it's going to wash too well, well, the government says I can now. It's okay. I think we can fight that one in court and win. You know what I mean? But when it came to your needles, oh, no, that's okay. We can stick that in anyone we like as well. I've struggled to see the difference myself, but apparently, some people seem to see things are a bit different there. But again, we know what right and wrong is, and we've got to stand by what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
Or stand by what's right and against what's wrong. Sorry, is what I meant to say there.
Yeah. And really, we don't have any guns. The sovereign citizens that walk around with guns on their hip, they don't have licenses for their firearms. These are the police I'm talking about, the satanic occultists. They walk around with guns on their hip. We don't have any guns, so we can't really fight against them. So we have to ignore them. We have to not deal with them. We have to remove them from our lives.
Tantrum, and you've seen how well that worked for you. You nearly got institutionalized the last time.
Well, we have to. Well, yeah, that's true. You are correct. Luckily, I'm a crash test dummy, but we have to ignore them. Yeah, because going along with them, and so we can't fight against them. So we have to. The answer to this is not found externally. The answer is found inside of ourselves. We've been conditioned by these governments to think that our superpowers, which humans have, that of intuition, that of doing the right thing and knowing what's right and wrong and using our intuition to solve our own problems doesn't exist, right? We've been conditioned to think that it's not a 3D thing that we can show a picture of, so it doesn't exist. It does exist, and we need to turn inward and find our own answers to these problems. Because the more you rely on voting for an external person to solve your problems, okay, then you're setting yourself up for what we've got now. Whereas, like we've both admitted, we've both been voting. I mean, I'm 55. I've been voting, for X many years. And here we are with poisoned kids, poisoned adults. We've got a collapsing economy. We've got whole families living on the streets. I mean, to keep going in this system would seem to me to be not a very good idea. Yeah. And we don't have time to fuck around while Albo's out there making Easter posts about his dogs, his dog, wishing you happy Easter from my fucking dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing says I have respect for your religious beliefs, Christians and Catholics and anyone else who believes in Jesus and the whole Easter thing. Nothing says he respects it quite like giving his love from his dog.
From his dogs.
I'm surprised he didn't take a photo of the back end of the dog just to let you know.
Sure. And then what's your other option? Dutton. I mean, he's an he's a WEF young leader, isn't he, Dutton? I think he is.
I know he's an ex-cop. Yeah, I know.
So he's an ex-Satanist, if not a current Satanist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's a criminal. He's apparently worth a lot of money. Something to do with offshore processing. Something to do with that. So you've got this ex-cop, fascist, Satanist criminal who because you're a bit more right-leaning, you might vote for in that direction. I mean, it's just insanity.
Wow.
That we would contemplate.
That's I wouldn't want either of them to win. That's for sure. That's certainly not a great.
Well, I bet $100 right now. One of them
sadly unlikely. You probably got the favourable odds in that one. It's not a bet I'd care to make. That's for sure. I put money on Trump winning because I was pretty sure he was going to win, and that paid out pretty well. So thank you to that payout from Sportsbet. That was a good one. But I only put money down when I know I'm going to win. So I ain't putting money on that one. Sorry. Because you're probably right. It's a sad reality, but I still hold out hope that there's enough people to wake up, because Labor only just got through the last time, so with a bit of hope. And, you know, I mean, Labor have crushed a lot of people, a lot of homes, a lot of families. They've really made life painful. And you've got to have a pretty good case of Stockholm syndrome, I think, at this point to want to continue down that road. So unless they got some sort of fraud up their sleeves, which I wouldn't mind betting, they definitely made a big connection with the Greens, because most people are showing ballots now that I've seen Labor preferencing Greens, and Greens will preference Labor, and that's about the only way they're going to fudge the system to work in their favor. You know, we seen dictator Dan created his I Hate Dan party to funnel everybody's hatred back into himself, and unfortunately a lot of people are too stupid to do the research and actually fucking look, I fucking hate Dan, and ended up voting for Dan. You know, again, this is what happens when you force idiots to fucking vote. You know, it's an unfortunate side effect. You know, yeah, no, it's certainly not a perfect scenario, and we're certainly never all going to agree on anything. But, you know, at the end of the day, at least everybody's taking it seriously and doing, you know, fuck the football for a couple of weeks. Let's worry about the actual outcome of my life, because who gives a shit whether Carlton and Essendon win this fucking week? It doesn't really matter. That's not going to change how much food is in my fridge. That's not going to change the value of my mortgage. But the outcome of that election, that might.
It won't. They'll just find new ways to rip you off. Okay. They'll be giving another $3 million to some synagogue, okay, as Dutton wears a skull cap in some interview. They'll just find another way to screw you over. Unfortunately, the future is not with the government. When all this falls apart,
the future is with the people.
About the mRNA
the future
injections,
is definitely with the people,
and all the correct. It's with your neighbor. It's with your next door neighbor growing tomatoes and you having chickens. You must do what you are told. And what they're telling us to do is to kill ourselves. And sorry, Batty, we don't even know each other before this interview, and I'm coming across pretty full on. So I'm sorry about that.
That's all good, mate. You know, you're certainly not the first. It probably won't be the last. It's okay. I get it. People are very, very, you know, passionate about their points of view, and I think this is probably a good opportunity to sort of look at the fact that you've gone, well, fuck this, I'm leaving Australia, correct?
Yeah, so just so ASIO and the Australian Federal Police and the local Port Macquarie Police know I'm leaving Australia probably at the end of this week, we'll be doing some out of jurisdiction broadcasts. In fact, we're out of jurisdiction now. The government and their authorities don't have any jurisdiction over us. They don't have any evidence of jurisdiction. When I'm in court, I ask them for some evidence that anyone in court has got any authority over me. I ask them, have the police provided any evidence of jurisdiction to the court today? And of course they haven't, because they don't have any. They don't have any evidence that they've got any authority over you. They've just got guns. So anyway, we'll be overseas doing some, we haven't decided on the title yet, doing some out of Australia coverage of the elections. And hopefully we can break all the laws pertaining to the elections and what you can and can't say now under these bullshit hate speech laws that were guillotined in by these criminals sitting there in Canberra, curtailing my free speech and that of my friends and my children. And so, yeah, hopefully that we'll be able to find some fun in this debauchery where it's just like a spin cycle of continuous bullshit. And then, and we haven't injured you and murdered you enough.
Yeah, we lost you again there, buddy. We've got you. Haven't injured you and murdered you enough, and I don't know if you can hear me. And yeah, that's not looking good. We might have to pause for a moment while we wait for that to happen. But yeah, at that particular point, I was just thinking a bit about the Labyrinth quote that was brought up last night. You have no power over me. It seems quite relevant to this particular scenario, and I always thought that movie was interesting. I had a conversation with a female friend once upon a time, and how she didn't like the movie because David Bowie's character kind of felt like a bit rapey, I think was the word she used. And I've gone, well, he's the Goblin King. He's trying to fucking imprison her, but trick her, with the, just love me, worship me, and I will be your slave. This contradictory crap. It's kind of a bit like what we're seeing at the moment in a sense, But the ultimate thing is that line that breaks the whole spell that he's got over her at the end, including the illusionary world, is you have no power over me, and bang, the fantasy disappears and reality emerges. Very, very powerful movie. I think Jim Henson did a lot of really good work. Not only with The Labyrinth, but The Dark Crystal is definitely up there as one of my all-time favorites. Fortunately, still having trouble getting Steve to connect here. Give it a minute, and we'll see how we go. The fun and games of live presentation, but it certainly does. It says a lot about the internet in this country, as Steve was saying. Earlier. Truth. Those that are deemed third world nations have better internet than us, but you got to wonder who the third world nation is. And it looked like we got Steve back. How are you, man? Sorry, I think you were at about there's something to the effect of they've we haven't hurt you enough before we lost you.
I just caught the end of that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, sweet.
No.
Yeah, so I've just come back on. ASIO strikes
cool.
again. I saw somebody. Also, I saw somebody make the comment, "What's the quick fix solution? Put in a raised garden bed, get some chickens, start meditating, and loving your neighbor, and forget about the government. That's the quick fix solution. There is no solutions from the government. They only create problems. They only rip you off and spend it, as I said, on drone wars overseas. That is where your money is going. We give money to Israel to bomb Gaza. We make automatic
money to Gaza to rebuild
machine guns to murder people in Gaza. And the lying Albanese says, oh, it's nothing to do with us because it's shipped out of Australia in parts and it's assembled in the United States. So that automatic machine gun blowing away people in Gaza, nothing to do with Australia. I mean, this is the sort of bullshit double speak that is unfortunately going to bring them undone, because people like me will have had enough of their bullshit and their lies and their murders and poisoning everyone and getting and ripping everyone off to the tune of having to now live in tents. It's a disgrace, and I'm amazed that anyone would still take part in voting for these animals. I'm just completely amazed. I can see why, and I see your side of the argument. Yeah, we can vote some good people in, but into a system that's not even run by them. It's run by bureaucrats. Yeah, like the magistrate the other day. She's an unelected bureaucrat. She didn't listen to me at all because she doesn't think she has to, because that's not the way it goes. Yeah.
And you hear a lot of that from magistrates' court. That's where things tend to need to be elevated, from what I'm being told by those more experienced in the court than I.
Yeah. Well, it's not a court. It's a sausage factory. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a star chamber.
It's just set up at the behest of the police to prosecute their bullshit. And in case you don't know, the police was invented to monetize street life. That's it. That's all the police are about, monetizing street life. Yeah. That's why you don't have a magistrate's court for federal crimes, because there's not enough of them to make it into a business. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like it's a federal crime to coerce someone into an injection. Yeah. But there's no magistrate's court set up for federal crime, so it doesn't get. But no fault lies with the centre. I don't know what that means.
It's an issue. Well, it's the same as we sent. I think he's referring to sending the machine gun parts off. And
I see. Yes,
they assembled them at the other end. So it's not my fault that they got done with anthrax, because I didn't make them open it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I didn't put it together. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't open the envelope. What are you talking about?
Is where people are going broke because of all the taxes they're paying, and they're ending up on the streets. And those taxes are just, like I said, turning into drones in Ukraine or automatic machine guns in Gaza. Fuck these
or
people.
funding LGBTQ book reading in fucking some faraway land.
Yeah, or the mutilization, the mutilizing of children. Yeah, mutilation of children. You know,
agreed.
That's where the money's going.
How good was it that the court system in the UK this week announced that a woman is a biological woman?
Yeah,
there's a bit of a win for the people there. And seeing as we're still part of that British system, there's still that Union Jack in that flag they keep flying. That could be a good win for Australia too. There's some sense coming about.
I guess it is positive in a sense, but in the other
take
sense, was there anyone
that little crack of light in that dark cloud when you can, man?
But there again, all the money spent for them to come to the realization that anyone you asked down the pub could have given you that answer 10 years ago, right? Yeah. Didn't need to go through
even to this day, I think.
a process
Majority
with the government.
People, they might look over their shoulder to see if there's no trannies around before they say it, but fucking women's, they've got to have the right bits.
So again, the government invented the problem that women weren't women, and now there's a crack of light when the government turns around and says that women are women. It's just...
they've taken that mile and they're giving a couple of inches back, So, but it's a step in the right direction, and and it is certainly not a sign that people should. Oh, that's it, we've won. Go back to sleep. Where's the footy and me meat pie? Certainly don't want to, because that kind of complacency is what got us here in the first place, and it's been. And I see a lot of people, like that question earlier. What's the quick solution? Well, I don't see a quick solution to such a monumental problem that's taken so long to develop. It's like, if when we live up here in sort of septic land, you get a bit of a scratch, and if you don't clean it out, it's going to go septic, goes all feral. If you don't get onto that shit soon enough, you're going to end up losing a limb. There's not much you can do about it at that point. You can save your life by cutting off your arm, sorry. Or you can keep letting it fester to the point that it kills you, So I think we're at that, we might have to cut off an arm sort of scenario at this particular point. I'd like to think that we can still be salvaged. But, to keep it within that analogy, personally, I've been cleaning out the wounds as best I can so I don't have too much of an infection to deal with, But not everybody's the same. A lot of people are losing limbs. A lot of people are losing lives, because they haven't been taking care. They haven't been paying attention. They haven't been doing that basic maintenance. A lot of people got a lot of catching up to do, and that's a sad reality of the scenario. A lot of people are still sitting there writhing in filth and swimming in their own pustules. But what do we just leave everybody? I don't know. So I guess some people are too far gone to save. That's for sure. If you're queuing up for your 6th jab, there's a good chance you ain't coming back. But there's a whole bunch of people, and I've seen quite a few on this podcast and many others going, yeah, all right, I didn't see it. I got the 2. I got sick, but it woke me the fuck up. And it's all right, cool. There's an example of they lost a couple of fingers. They lost a toe or something. They lost something, but it forced them to wake up. It's much like like the analogy of the child earlier, walking in front of the swing, got kicked in the head. Fuck, I won't do that again. Unfortunately, that seems to be the way people learn. I'm just hoping people learn a little bit faster, I guess, is where we're really at. But even then, we've still got a lot of work to do. These satanic pedophile fuckers are, deeply entrenched in so many places. And, if you're feeling that, fuck this battle can't be won, let's retreat, regroup, and come back. Awesome. No worries. More power to you. Bit harder for me to sort of pack up and fuck off. I'll be sitting in the trenches for a little bit longer, awaiting your return, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I need a break at the moment, and I had a break last year, thank God, because when I come back and start telling these Satanists that they're going to go to prison, they get very upset and they bash me and attempt to have me, sectioned. So you can only do that for so long and then go back out again. But if there were more people with me, we might have some more success, like that gentleman you were
Mm.
talking about who lost his house. If his whole
Yeah.
street had done that, he wouldn't have lost his
Mm.
house. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a numbers game. Yeah. It really is a numbers game.
So what do you sort of take from that own analysis, that your own analysis there? That like, okay, maybe perhaps in future, the next time you're going to do something, make sure you're not alone. Maybe.
Oh yeah, possibly. Yeah, that could be
Right.
that could be a go. But also, it lulls these authorities into a false sense of security, and it always bites them in the ass in the end, I've found.
Mm.
Like now I've got this magistrate, I've dobbed her in to the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission and the police that she conspired with to have me put away. Law Enforcement Conduct Commission may not do anything other than, send them a stern email or say, oh, don't worry, there's nothing to see here. But these people need to know that they're currently they're operating as if there are no consequences for them, that they're above the law. And and so me just standing there and saying, well, no, I'm not doing that, it does wake them up somewhat. Yeah. And what I tell people is, at what point are you going to stop complying? Is it when they're marching your family off?
Yeah.
Is that when you're going to stop complying? Or are you going to do it now while you still have some strength left in you? Yeah. Because it's quite clear to anyone who's studied the subject that these governments that mandated these jabs knew it killed you in 2021. There's no disputing that. Yeah.
I agree.
So what do you
certainly get no argument.
So you really think that now voting for them is going to somehow make things better?
But again, I'm struggling with the voting for them, because it's I get that you like, okay, Liberal and Labor are most likely going to win. That's the outlook you've got there,
Well,
where I'm hoping
corrupt.
that they're going to get a good kick in the dick, and that there's a lot more smaller parties are going to get up there and their lives are going to become more challenging, which is what I'm hoping for and working toward, because I want that light at the end of the tunnel to shine a little bit brighter, as if it was actually getting closer for a change, but
how is it possible?
Just by people.
How's it possible that there'll be a light at the end of the tunnel if the government is still in power? If you've still got a government that's sending money overseas to blow people to pieces, your hard-earned money, and if you don't pay that money, someone's going to come and take your house. How is it possible that in this system we've got set up at the moment that there is a light at the end of the tunnel? I can't say I agree with you there. Okay, this system has to go. The whole system. It's not a question of swapping out people.
It can't just be, you by yourself standing out in the middle of the street waiting to get arrested again, any more than it can be, the two of us sitting here having a conversation while a few hundred people watch and, sit, keep their chair warm or whatever, hopefully those people watching are thinking, actually, no, I'm going to get up and start doing something because this is where we're at, but, it's one of these things I find everybody sort of can't. Well, again, me saying everybody, we can't tarnish everything and everyone with the same brush, or tar them with the same brush. Sorry, not tarnish. There are still good people in there. Like not all coppers are assholes. I've come across quite a few good ones. So, I've sat down and had a beer with quite a few good coppers. For instance, one copper I sat down and had a beer with. I said to him, mate, somebody told me that you can't drive in bare feet. Is that a law or what? He's going, man, I'm a detective. Don't mistake me for those assholes that get out there handing out fines to little old ladies thinking they're achieving something for the greater good of humanity. I arrest real scumbags, I've got no idea. As far as I'm concerned, I don't give a shit whether you got shoes on or not. Just don't crash the fucking thing. He was a good copper,
I'm sure many of the police joined for the right reasons. Yeah. But after about 2 years, you'll find most of them probably leave because they've worked out.
And that's, again, another statistic that's very telling too, that, the police can't even hold on to the police. They're struggling to get people to even want to sign up because of what they've done to the police force. The police don't want to be police anymore because it's not what they signed up for. That's a big tell as well. As you can see, there's a big resistance on everything. To me, it's an exciting time, especially for somebody was very much angry like yourself in high school. There's a wonderful fucking year 12 photo of me looking like last of the fucking Mohicans with lightning bolts and shit all over my t-shirts and rings and piercings hanging out everywhere. I was a fucking angry kid, because nobody was fucking listening. There's something really wrong here, man. But as time's rolled on, I'm like, well, nobody fucking listens. And the more you jump up and down, the more everybody thinks you're a fucking idiot. So what's the point? Hopefully they'll figure it out. And, the vaccine scenario come around. I thought this one will wake them up. Well, not everyone, and astoundingly, I thought this is it. This is the moment that people will finally get it. My faith in humanity was shattered yet again. But not completely, because a lot of people did wake up. And from my point of view, for decades of watching the shit just get worse, things look like there's a turn. I'm starting to see that, that light at the end of the tunnel isn't just a freight train trying to run me over anymore. It actually looks like there is something in the distance. And, maybe I'm being completely optimistic. Maybe I'm living in a fantasy world myself here. Maybe, maybe that's what I tell myself so I can sleep at night. I don't know. Somebody else can psychoanalyze that one for me, but
I'm in a privileged position. I'm in a privileged position that I don't have a house anymore. I don't have a driver's license anymore. I don't have anything that these people can threaten me with anymore. So from that privileged position, I'm definitely going to keep spruiking my non-compliance platform because it doesn't matter who you vote for. They don't run the government. They're just actors for television. Yeah. And it turns out Albanese can't even answer a question from the general public.
You've got nothing left to lose. There's nothing left to fight for, in a sense. Is that kind of how you feel?
No. There's everything to fight for. I'm still fighting. Yeah. I'm going on with fighting. It's so
just, what drives you then? Like you say, you've got no home, no license. As I understand it, you've suffered quite a bit of loss as a result of your stances. Perhaps you could illuminate us on that a little bit to exactly what you've lost there. But what keeps you going?
Sure. Well, look. My marriage ended in 2021, and COVID wasn't the reason, but it was the final straw, and myself and my wife weren't on the same page, and so the house that I just finished building in 2021 had to be sold, and then I started racking up all sorts of fines for my activism against the COVID jabs, which at that point had not yet been mandated. And so I was arrested in the street for not wearing a mask. I was bashed in prison, and then in the lockup, and then I was charged with assaulting public officers amongst other charges, and I was sent directly to maximum security prison on so-called remand.
Yeah.
And since then, I really have not been taking part in what you'd call normal society. If I did any work, it would be for cash only, and I haven't done much work. I've mostly been trying to come up with different ways to wake people up to the fact that their government is trying to kill them. And no amount of swapping people in and out of Canberra is going to stop the fact that the whole system is set up to fuck you over. It's the system. It doesn't matter which party is in. Yeah, doesn't matter. So we've got to get rid of that. We've got to, as I keep saying, turn our backs on that system and not participate in it. Yeah. Now, and as I say, for me, it's a privilege to be able to not have a mortgage and say, well, it's easy for Steve to say, and I admit that, and that's why I keep going, because I don't now have to have a mortgage and et cetera, but it is a very fragmented life where you're moving around from wherever you can stay here and there. But even families now with jobs, they're now finding themselves on the streets.
Yeah.
And everything in this country is being commoditized, from people's mortgages to their children's education. Everything is a scam now, and that's because the systems have been put in place that way. This country doesn't have any rights other than implied right to political, free speech or something like that. Doesn't actually have any rights, which is why they keep rolling out these bullshit laws as a test to see what people will probably put up with in Australia. That's what Australia is used for. They've just come out with the digital ID bill and the under 16 ban from the internet bill and all this other bullshit, which isn't an under 16 ban. It's everyone needs to prove they're not under 16, which is everyone needs to prove who they are every time they get on the internet bill.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that's exactly what it is.
To think that
we're pretending to protect children, but what we're really doing is enslaving humanity.
Protecting children by injecting them with poison and cutting off their breasts. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. Yeah. It's complete insanity. And for me to think, we can just change the political parties and that's going to change everything. I just can't see it. We have to completely turn our backs on this thing called government. And remember, government isn't real. It's not an actual thing. It's just an idea. Government is an idea. Yeah. And it's no longer in my paradigm of things I'm going to put up with, government. Yeah. And I'm just reading one of these comments now.
Yeah.
And also,
so I agree with your observations. Your observations are bang on. This is what's happened. This is the state we're in. These people lie through their fucking teeth, and when they're not lying, they just don't flat out just won't answer the questions, as we've seen with Elbow quite a lot lately. He just refuses to answer.
It looks like a deer in the headlights. The mouth shut.
Yeah. He just shakes his head and then talks about something else. Like, the guy is an absolute criminal, and I personally believe hanging's too good for someone like him. And I'm pretty confident if Dutton was given half the chance that he'd probably be in exactly the same scenario, doing pretty much the same thing. They really are two cheeks to the same ass. And I agree. Which is again why it's like, well, let's push some more change in there. And as we've seen, the more and more minor parties and more things getting in there, and that balance of power is shifting. It's really fucking obviously having an effect. So to me, when you can see that what you're doing may not be having a major effect right now, but it's having enough of effect to make them worried, it tells me we're heading in the right direction. Again, using that observation, just observing what's going on and how things are playing out. What they wouldn't be trying to control the internet so much if what we were doing by having this conversation right now wasn't having an effect as well. Wouldn't have had fucking 100 trolls streaming us like for an hour constantly last night, trying to fuck with the podcast if we weren't doing something good last night. So obviously the guests we had there, and I'd encourage you go and have a look at that podcast, man, because it's a lot of legal stuff going on there, people who are fighting within the courts and having some wins there. And on that note, have you had much success fighting any of this injustice in court in any way, shape or form?
I would say no, because the courts are completely, magistrates. I've only been in magistrates court. Actually, no, I had one federal charge last year, but mostly it's magistrates court, and of course it's not a real court. So you don't. It's as one lawyer who is one of the few lawyers I have some respect for in WA, Stephen Gabriel, as he said, court is not a winning place. Magistrates court is not a winning place. So I'd always have these ideas, we could do this and maybe we could win. He's going, magistrates court is not a winning place. It's fraud. He didn't say that. That's me. It's
a star chamber.
It's organised crime,
and it's fundamentally against the whole principle of the court in the first place. So and that's why you're going through the ringing process, fucking around in the magistrate court, so you can get up to the next court and actually get some fucking real court action.
But even that, federal prosecutors, they're all corrupt as well. I had a charge from coming back into the country last time where I wouldn't sign the passenger card. I filled it out to say where I'd been. I'd been in a place that had livestock, but I wasn't going to sign a contract with the government. No more contracts with fascists. And so they arrested me and assaulted me again. And in the end, in court, the prosecutor stood up, which really pissed the magistrate off because I'd already pissed the magistrate off by that stage, and she wanted to get me. And the federal prosecutor stood up and said, "Oh, it's not in the public interest, so we're dropping the charge." And they were dropping the charge because they didn't want the fact that I was calling them out on the COVID bullshit, and the fact that they've poisoned everyone, and they're not. There's no arrests. There's no arrests for anyone. My battery's going to run out soon, so sorry about that.
No, you're all right.
There's been no arrests for the federal laws that have been broken. So why are they arresting me for not filling in the passenger card? And by the way, anyone out there, you don't need to fill in the passenger card. You're not immigrating. Australian citizens are not mentioned in the Migration Act at all. Exactly. But everyone just believes they have to go along with these things, and including the Border Force and the Federal Police, who think that if you don't do what you're told, you've got to be arrested and punished.
Yeah.
Even though they don't know what they're talking about. And that's what we have to also remember. Most of the people in authority, they have no idea what they're talking about. They may have got some advice from somebody or have their own beliefs. They probably never actually read the acts. And definitely at that last guillotine session where they pushed everything through at the end of last year, most of those so-called politicians, they wouldn't have read the legislation that they were guillotining through. Yeah. It's just, it's literally the blind leading the blind. And we wonder why we're so far down the fucked up hole, because we're not listening to ourselves. We're not loving our neighbor and growing.
And I'm going to assume that was the battery gone there, or the connection in some way. I don't know if you're still there, but we've just lost your body. I tell the judge about our imperial constitution, and you're standing in that crown, not Edward's. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're running out a bit there. We might have to call it a day. I was hoping to do a kind of a quicker podcast anyway today. I didn't want to do another 4 hours. I've got a few other things to do. Got to go and have a yarn with some Indigenous fellas, and hopefully bring back some more cool footage for you guys. We have received word that Michael is okay. He's out and currently sleeping. So, and there were no complications. So we're all feeling pretty happy about that. Thanks to everybody for all your good vibes out there and wishing him well. Hopefully he's through the worst of it, and it's just a bit of recovery time now, but we'll have more updates as things come on. I don't know if you're still watching there, Robin. I believe we have entertained the idea of something perhaps happening at about 8 o'clock Eastern time this evening. Stay tuned. I don't want to promise anything because I don't know exactly what's going on just yet, but look, I think there's every chance that we'll all be, in relatively high spirits. Things he's come out in the right way, and I'll look out. Steve's back. Here we are. Unjabbed.
Sorry about that.
Vilified. No, you're
anyway,
right,
sorry.
mate.
I've been ranting far too much. So I'll de-rant, and I'll just tell everyone that we need love. We don't need elections. Yeah. So elections are going to do nothing for us, just like they've done nothing for us our whole lives. Yep. And just by participating in the election.
Most of them, yes. But...
Sure.
Like I said,
it's not them. It's the system.
Yeah.
But it's not the individual politicians. They might be good people, like the people, the independents we know that are good people, that have been calling out in Senate estimates all the COVID bullshit and everything else. They're good people, but the system is rotten to the core, and we need to turn our backs on it. And the longer we stay connected to it, the more dependent we get. And so we're going to find ourselves unable to detach from it. And while we're in this, I mean, that's the one silver lining with COVID, is that it's shown the system to be the fraud that it is. Yeah. There were supposed to be checks and balances so that people wouldn't get poisoned by medical malfeasance. Well, that turns out to be not the case. So the system, you need to turn your backs on the system itself. And it's very confronting for people, but there is no other way out. There isn't. You're not going to vote your way out of fascism.
Yeah.
I would like to think so.
Well, I don't know that we're fully there yet. Because they haven't cancelled the elections just yet. I mean, we have seen scenarios overseas where, hang on, the government they didn't want got in quick, shut everything down. We've seen that, good old Putin over in Ukraine, Putin, fucking, what is his name? Cockknocker in Ukraine is probably a better name for him anyway. He shut down elections, because he knows he'd get voted out because nobody in Ukraine, I think, really wants that fucking war. They're beating their heads against a wall, or more to the point, catapulting humans into tanks. It's just mass suicide. It's really, really madness.
Yeah.
And, all across
Australian tax dollars at work.
For a very long time. And I think it's one of those things I've seen, David Icke kind of say. It's like, you get around the world, and I haven't, I'm just looking around at Australia thinking most of it's a fucking shithole. But, you fuck it, as far as, the big cities in particular go. But fucking, apparently you get around most of the world and everybody's just living in squalor. The majority of the human race is just surviving from day to day. We're all living in one giant fucking hellish pit, and I mean, at the end of the day, are we going to keep writhing in it, or are we going to try and climb out to the best of our abilities? I guess is the real thing. We've all got to do it our way, our own individual ways. And, I think everybody's free way of doing things is probably the best for us. I don't know if you've seen the Lego movie, but, President Business, didn't like all this free creativity going on. That was pissing him right off. We need to, craggle the fuck out of everything. And you can see that's what's happening, So the more we are free, the more we are trying new ideas, and everybody trying at this from a different angle is, that they can't have one system solves all problems if everybody's trying something different. So, best of luck to you on your approach to this, man. I don't know if you heard before, but Michael is out of the off the chopping block at the moment, and
thank God.
Recovering and doing well. We are looking at potentially doing something tonight at around 8 o'clock. I'm not sure. We'll have more news on that later for anybody who's just tuning in as well. Just thought I'd let you know as well, because I was giving everybody a bit of an update while you dropped out.
Thanks for that news.
No worries, man. So everybody's done great, sending out them positive vibes, and we're hoping for a speedy recovery now.
Yeah.
But we should probably wrap it up around about now, man. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go out?
No, I've ranted long enough, probably bored everyone to tears. Fuck, Steve's on his rant again. We're
all guilty as charged.
People just need to start relying on themselves, because we didn't, I don't know how long humans have been on the earth for, but this evil satanic system has been in charge for the last couple of thousand years only. We did quite well before then. We didn't have a dole office back then, but we found another way. So everyone who's thinking, oh well, without the government I'd be completely screwed, well, they are going to get you one way or the other if you keep dealing with them. So and I'm getting back into Rantville. So just rely on your own intuition and start working with each other, and that's the way out of this. Forget about the government.
Building our own communities like what we've done here with the Cafe Locked Out crew, and our own individual little groups in my places and things like that. I think that's definitely the way forward. As you've definitely demonstrated, standing there in the street by yourself gets you arrested. Going out there with a few hundred people might change their fucking approach a little bit.
It certainly would. Yep, it certainly would. Just 100 people. That would change a whole dynamic.
Safety in numbers.
But in a way, it's been good, because it's shown people that I'm still here. I'm still here ranting. They've thrown everything they could at me, but I believed that I was doing the right thing, and I'm still here. And I've hopefully given some people have told me that they at least saw one person standing up, and that gave them hope in some very dark times. And so
And
me being
we've
such an
seen what happened
outlier.
to Jesus. And Jesus gave that a go apparently 2,000 years ago, according to some, people. Some people believe it happened. Some people say it's just a good story, Either way, any way you look at it, he stood up by himself and he was crucified by himself. And, maybe if his 12 apostles, stood with him a little bit harder, maybe if, I mean, it's one of those things in the story that I've always done in my head. It's like, hang on, there was like heaps of people there listening to him while he gave away two loaves of bread and 5 fish, or was it the other way around? I can't remember. So where the fuck were they?
Fear.
You know what I mean?
Fear stopped them. Fear stopped them from taking action, and we've got to get over that. That's why I say everyone's got to get arrested to get over it. It's not that bad, okay? I'm still here. I'm fine. Well, fine. I certainly wouldn't compare myself to Jesus, but we do need to just let go of fear as he did, because he had faith. Yeah, he had faith that things were going to work out no matter what. And we're all going to die at the end of the day. And do you want to die on your knees? I'm certainly not going to die on my knees.
Nah.
So
Get on my feet, kicking and screaming.
Get together, hold hands, lose the fear. We can do this. But unfortunately, we can't do it with so-called government. Yeah, they're just they are literally just criminals at this point.
Yeah.
Lots of love, buddy.
Likewise, my friend, live long and prosper.
Yeah.
Let's hope, we're not going to hope. We are going to make some change. The people who are watching right now are inspired. They're going to get off their chairs or from wherever they're watching this right now and think, right, what can I do to make this world a better place? What is it that they're good at? What are they motivated to do? And that individual creative passion will hopefully scare the shit out of the president, business, and the rest of those craggle fuckers.
Sure. And just go ask anybody who's been through the magistrate's court. They're still alive. They're still fine. Didn't kill them, right?
I survived my experience.
So even when they do arrest you and put you through the mill, you're still okay. So stop complying. Lose the fear. Stop complying. Yeah. And I'm getting on my soapbox again. Sorry, brother.
All right.
Exactly. Let's exactly. Yeah.
It's all a learning curve.
And complying just makes you weaker, because then you do what they said this week, you're going to have to do what they say next week. And they're getting worse and worse and worse. So what are you going to do? You've just got to turn your backs on them.
Yeah, definitely.
Or good luck with those independents, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I'm curious to see how it works out, because the current trend is looking quite positive. And if that trending data continues in that light, and like I said, that freight train's derailed, and it actually is a light now.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, it's not the freight train, but yeah.
Oh, it is. It is. I'm meditating to the world that is how it is. And if we all think happy, positive vibes, maybe, it will change things. No more ifs, buts, maybes. Do or do not, as Yoda says.
Well, good luck to everyone. Good luck to everyone in this so-called election. And I don't know what platform we'll be putting, maybe YouTube or something, we'll see, or X, I'm not really sure. We're trying to do some vlogs from outside the country where we can do some honest reporting about the election, which is, I guess, not what you're going to get we'll get it from you, Batty, but we won't get it from the mainstream media bullshit artists. They're, of course, all paid shills at this point.
They're just idiots. I used to work for them, man. Trust me, most of them are just fucking idiots. And the scary thing is, and this is one of the things that I really realized working for the mainstream media, is that they actually think they're doing the right thing, which is even scarier than the fact that they're just paid idiots or paid Satanists.
They're adhering to the code of conduct.
Exactly. There's a lot of blind sheeple who actually think they're doing the right thing, and that's even scarier than the fact that they're paid Satanists.
Yeah, because at least paid Satanists know what they're doing, right? Yeah. Whereas these people have no idea, but are happy to go along. The useful idiots is probably the most dangerous people. just like the police. A lot of them don't know what's going on. So they're useful idiots, but with guns, which makes them very, very dangerous individuals in these days.
Yeah.
They'll do anything they're told, anything.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're at which is why I keep getting so radical, because we're at a point now where continuing to do what we're told is going to have the same result that we've seen. And it's a disastrous result. We've got most of the population poisoned, and a lot of them about to be homeless or already are homeless. And what are the people in authority doing? They're taking pictures of their dogs and posting it, saying Happy Easter. It's a dystopia, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can either keep going with that, or you can decide to get together with your local community and making sure everyone's fed and watered and got somewhere to stay. And that's all we need as humans. We don't need insurance or superannuation, which we might not even see again, that superannuation, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Senator Reddick was saying that just the other day that, it's like, well, let's look at it. All those people who were there when superannuation just started are about to start cashing out. And that means the super funds are going to start losing a lot of money, So, there's a good chance that whole system could implode, as that happens, because so far the beast has just been mostly being fed, and whoever they've had to pay out wasn't taking much, but now we're going to have full lifetime superannuation payouts coming out, and that, let's face it, they don't want to let go of that money, and the government just sees another opportunity for more taxes and more control anyway. So the whole superannuation thing was a fucking scam, and it's something else that needs to really be removed. I can save my own money, fuck off, get
complete
out.
Fraud. I could maybe use it to buy some accommodation if I had access to it, but we don't. Somebody else has got access to it, and guess what they're doing? They're buying accommodation with it. So that's what the super funds are doing.
That's it. Buying up all the real estate so you can't have any.
So you can't have it, and they're selling it to overseas investors. Yeah, that's what's happening.
Yep, foreign ownership's got to end. Vote for me. I'll solve the world's problems in fucking in a few days. You think Trump was a whirlwind? Fuck it, I'll sort it out real quick. Anyway, we better leave it there, my friend. It's been great.
Thanks for having me on, mate.
And look, when you get out to your new place outside of what are we going to call it today? The tyrannical borders of Australia.
From nowhere,
from out in the middle of nowhere somewhere. Drop us a line and we'll get you back in for another yarn. See how you going, buddy.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Thanks so much for your time, brother. And hi to everyone. Sorry for my ranting, but just believe in yourself. Believe in your own intuition. Lots of love. Thanks.
No worries, mate. You have a good one, buddy. And what was your YouTube channel again?
It's 3 Steve's Films. It's one word, the number 3 Steve's Films. It's a bit of a weird channel name, but if you just search for Perth lockdown, you probably get me in YouTube, and you can see there's a whole lot of videos. I just do a little bit on X, but not really. It's really just mostly YouTube.
Surprised they haven't shut you down.
Well, I'm not popular enough. I don't have enough subscribers. Otherwise, they probably would have. I think once you hit a certain amount, then they'll cancel you. But hopefully we can get cancelled sometime in the near future, huh?
Whatever floats your boat, mate. I've got multiple channels. You got to have a few doors open. They can close one, but there's a few more still open.
Yeah. Well, that's it. We're humans. We'll find another way. So don't worry, people. If you have to say goodbye to the government, don't worry. We'll find another way. We're on a lump, depending on the theory you believe in. We're on a chunk of rock hurtling through space, right? So you don't need to worry about the government and this delusion that they've got everyone obsessed with, right? We just need to be fed, watered, and sheltered. That is it. Yeah.
That's for sure.
All righty.
Look out for each other, and hopefully we can find a way to evolve in amongst all this shit too.
Beyond high school, as seems to be the problem in this country in particular. But anyway, this one's for Michael.
He's running around too.
Hopefully you'll get soon, Michael. We love you lots, man. And Thanks, Scotty, Patty. Talk soon.
Not a problem, man. You take it easy, dude. We'll talk to you soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. That's all we've got for you for now. Stay tuned. We might have something a bit later this evening. If you haven't already considered it, consider it again. Patreon, come and join us. Help me fund this stuff. It's not cheap, you know. If you got a story to share, or something that needs to get out there in some way, shape, or form, NQ Freedom Network at protonmail.com is the best way to get a hold of me. If you sent me something via Facebook, it's hit and miss whether I see it, and the same as on any of the other platforms. Your best bet is to shoot me an email here. So don't forget, in the description, we've got the link for a 7-day free trial of the Gaia Network. If you want to give that a go, I quite enjoy it, and that's why I'm promoting it, simply because, look, if you sign up, I get something out of it, but I'm sharing it because I actually fucking use it, and $10 free Bitcoin on your first fund transfer. If you go and follow that link, you get $10, I get $10. It's a win-win situation. What could go wrong? It's free. Anyway, you guys have a good one, and we may see you later at about 8 o'clock with something. And isn't it good that Michael's okay? So till later this evening or next time in some way, shape, or form, don't forget to go and have a look in the mirror. Ask yourself, what can you do to make this shithole a little less shitty? Catch you later.